All right, so Pastor Brent asked me about a week or two ago if I was interested in sharing my testimony, and as many of you know, testimonies are definitely very special, so of course I said yes. And in the meantime, I kept letting school and, lifely things get in the way of sitting down and actually spending time on what I needed to, like preparing for it. And when I finally decided to sit down and put as much time into it, it was Friday evening after Jossie's football game. So a little backtrack after the football game on Friday. I rode home alone and I was very upset. I was crying, and it wasn't because I was sad. I honestly at the time couldn't figure out why I was crying, but I was. And I took the long way home, was listening to music and let all the outside world thoughts consume me. And it was about 2 minutes into my meltdown that I finally realized what was really bothering me. So as many of you know, a huge tragedy took place earlier this week with Charlie Kirk's assassination. But I think the reason that it bothered me so much was because this wasn't an attack because he was a criminal or because he caused disruption during one of his debates. It was an attack because of his faith, and I think we all know that. So Charlie Kirk was a child of God, and when one of God's children are called home, it's a loss that we all carry together. I realized after, like I said, 2 minutes, why I was upset. And after pushing my testimony off for so long, I felt this sadness because after I pushed this testimony off for so long, I knew that moment right then needed to be included in my testimony. I felt this sadness, and the reason I have been so upset is because I know that I have accepted God into my life and into my heart, and that moment became confirmation of God's presence in my life. So for those of you who don't know, I didn't really grow up knowing much about Jesus. I mean, we attended a church here and there for like Christmas sermons and Easter sermons, but I didn't know much about God, So I was first truly introduced to God during my sophomore year of high school through FCA, and I attended pretty regularly, but like I said, I hadn't truly known the Lord. I hadn't opened my heart to him. And by the end of that school year, I had hit rock bottom. I was struggling with depression, bullying, anxiety, you name it. There was everything underneath the sun I was struggling with. And it was one of the darkest moments of my life. A few months later, things started to get better, and summer had arrived. And with that, all the high school drama left. And at the time, I thought it was just the time doing healing, but now I know that that was the Lord. And I don't remember the exact day, but I do know without a doubt that God changed me that summer. So one night, my mom and I were sitting on the couch. We were watching TV, and we were watching a documentary on evolution. And as many of you guys know, the biblical truth never really lines up with evolution. And as the show went on, more questions started to arise. And before I continue, I want to share a little background with me and my mom's relationship. So my mom's my best friend. We attend church together now, and she's always been my number one supporter and go-to person. We always agree on almost everything and rarely argue. But that night I learned something, that my mom did not know God. And she asked, how could a God so good take my mom from me when I was so young? My grandmother, she passed away when my mom was just a kid, and I think that was a huge downfall in my mom's faith, because honestly, without knowing Jesus, that's a valid question, because you tend to blame Jesus for the bad things that happen, but that's not what we should do. Hearing it from her, my best friend, it broke my heart, and we ended up arguing. Lots of tears were shed, and I could feel the enemy's presence in that room. It was preying on her pain and weakness, and it hurt deeply to think that someone I love so much might not reach the gates of heaven one day. Eventually, the conversation calmed, and we made a deal, and I told her, just before you go to bed every night, talk to God, and you don't even need to really make it professional. Talk to him like he's one of your friends. So she agreed, and what she didn't know was I also made the same promise to myself, because like I said, I was introduced to God, but I didn't have a relationship with him. So I made a promise that we were going to grow in our faith together. And that night, everything changed. My mom and I were both saved that night. And since then, our relationship with God has grown even stronger. We now attend church together. I was an FCA huddle leader for Fort Hill. I attend the FCA huddles up at Frostburg, and I've gone to 2 FCA power camps. We also recently attended the summer worship concert with Brandon Lake and Phil Wickham, and I've helped to create online platforms for those struggling in their walk with God. So I want to conclude with saying that struggling with God and your faith, it doesn't mean that you don't know him. It means you're still reaching for him, even when your hands are trembling. And the beauty is, he never really lets go. What wrecks me is knowing that in the moments I felt most unlovable, he looked at me and said, "You are still mine." And that's grace. That's love. And that's why I'm standing here today. When tragedy struck with Charlie Kirk's death, it broke everyone's heart, and it also reminded us of something greater. His passing can become more than sorrow. It can be a spark that unites us as believers. It's a call to stand bolder in our faith, to live unashamed of the gospel, and to show the world that even in loss, we are not defeated. If anything, this tragedy challenges us to rise together, to love one another more fiercely, and to carry God's light into places that desperately need it. Charlie's death is painful, but through it, God can awaken us in a deeper strength and a stronger unity and a faith that refuses to be shaken. That's all I have.